This is Fantasy Football Today on CBSSports.com.
Is it time to start Carson Palmer? Is it time to bench Matt Ryan? Are we really at that point in the fantasy season? Welcome to an exclusive edition of Fantasy Football Today for CBS Local Sports. I'm Jamie Eisenberg, that's Dave Richard, and we are going to tell you why Matt Ryan and Matt Stafford and Eli Manning and Andy Dalton, a lot of other quarterbacks aren't playing very well. Well, we'll just get into at least one of those guys. How are you, Dave?
I'm good, Jamie, and you?
I'm great.
You seem great.
Yes, you like Carson Palmer this week.
I do, and I'm really encouraged by what I saw last week. He entered the game with shoulder issues and nerve issues and things that make me nervous as a fantasy owner, and he threw 44 times and he had a big game. I think you can see Carson Palmer do better than that on fewer pass attempts against the Oakland Raiders. Here's some fun tidbits on the Oakland Raiders. You'll enjoy this.
Hit me.
8 passing touchdowns allowed by the Raiders in their last 4 games. Each of the last 2 quarterbacks to play the Oakland Raiders have put up 24 or more fantasy points against them, and they have 5 sacks on the season. So Carson Palmer's going to have a lot of time to throw. He's got some good receivers to throw to. I'm going to go ahead and say he's at least a top 10 quarterback this week. So you start Carson Palmer.
Yep, and I would start him over Matt Ryan, who's obviously not doing a very good job right now with the Atlanta Falcons. You know, last week's game, if you were to say that he would struggle at home against the Bears, I would say there's no chance he's going to do well this week against the Ravens, and that's the case. That's where we are right now with the Ravens. And I know they've given up some good fantasy production to the last 2 quarterbacks that they faced, specifically Mike Glennon in a blowout effort by the Ravens beating up on that Bucs team. But I still think Matt Ryan outdoors. You've seen him now struggle outdoors. 5 touchdowns, 6 interceptions on the season when he's played away from the Georgia Dome. Offensive line is struggling right now. You have Julio Jones and Roddy White battling some nagging injuries. They'll still put up their numbers, specifically Julio Jones, but I don't know if you're going to get the big game from Matt Ryan because they're going to see him running a lot away from Ravens defenders. Carson Palmer, a much better start than him.
Yeah, no doubt about it. You know, it's like Matt Ryan could use a good luck mustache or something. Are you for mustaches or against them?
I'm done with mustaches, buddy.
You don't like mustaches.
Yours looks good, though.
Justin FORSETT, though, does not need a good luck mustache. He's certainly looking like a great player. Why don't you tell everybody why you like him this week?
He's our start of the week on CBSSports.com, and I think you'll see him come out and have another great game. Last 3 games, at least 90 total yards, 2 touchdowns over that span. He's got 10 catches over that span as well. So you're seeing him take advantage of some good matchups, and this is a great one. The Falcons give up the most touchdowns to opposing running backs, 11. They've given up 8 guys so far this year with 80 or more total yards. So you're going to see him get the work, and we've seen him lose some production in garbage time because the Ravens have been up so big in their last couple of games. But if it's a competitive game for whatever reason, if Matt Ryan does come to play and that offense shows up for the Falcons, maybe FORSETT has a monster performance because he's yet to have more than 17 touches on the season. I know you're starting Justin FORSETT over Bishop Sankey, who's been a huge disappointment so far.
Yeah, and Bishop Sankey could have 10 good luck mustaches and it wouldn't help him because he's stuck in a situation in Tennessee where he's not going to be the every down back. He's the running downs back for the Titans. Had 18 carries last week, couldn't do anything with it, and really needed a 22-yard run late in the game to have a good week. And now he's going up against a Redskins defense. The Redskins could build a lead. It pushes Sankey off the field because the Titans use other running backs when they're playing from behind or when they're in heavy pass situations. Sankey and the Redskins matchup, it's a bad mix for him because the Redskins are allowing 3.4 yards per carry on the season. Only 1 rush touchdown allowed to a running back all year long. And even if they get right up to the goal line like the Titans did last week, Sankey isn't the one in. You're going to see Jackie Battle play. So hands off Bishop Sankey for me. I don't want to trust him this week.
Now you do like MOHAMED SANU, who's been playing very well without A.J. Green. A.J. Green likely out again. So can SANU take advantage of what's been a tough matchup, though, for receivers going into the Colts?
Yeah, receivers against Indianapolis, it hasn't all been good, but 3 of the 5 that have had at least 10 targets against them have put up 9 or more fantasy points. And I would say that that's the floor for MOHAMED SANU, and I expect him to get at least 10 targets again this week as the #1 receiver for the Bengals because eventually Giovanni Bernard's going to run out of gas and the Bengals are going to have to throw, and SANU is their best weapon. He also has 10 or more fantasy points in 4 of 5 games this season. Now, it's a little bit misleading because in some of those games he's thrown a touchdown. It's been a little wacky for SANU, but I still feel like he's contributing to Cincinnati and he's going to be in that role for the rest of the season. I like him this week as a #2 receiver. I love him in PPR leagues. I think he could do fine. He's someone who stepped up for his team this year. A guy who stepped up for his team last year was Keenan Allen with the Chargers. He's been bad this year, though. What are you doing with Keenan Allen?
You can't start him right now. You know, and it's so frustrating because here's Phillip Rivers throwing the ball to everybody except Keenan Allen. Antonio Gates has played well. Malcolm Floyd's been great. Eddie Royal's had his moments. You're seeing Brandon Oliver out of the backfield catch touchdowns, and Keenan Allen just not getting a piece of the pie right now. And until he starts to produce like the guy we saw last year, which who knows if that guy will ever show up this season. I hope he does. You got to sit him on your bench right now. Don't cut him. Maybe you could trade him if you get something fair in return, or maybe somebody's still buying into the Keenan Allen name from 2013. But right now, he's just not playing well. It has nothing really to do with the matchup because Kansas City's secondary, nothing to write home about. Their defense has played very well over the last couple of games. However, I think that San Diego, everybody else will put up good numbers. Rivers will keep going. Malcolm Floyd will get his. Gates is still a great start. But Keenan Allen right now is just not trustworthy. I would start Justin Hunter over him. I would start Mohamed Sanu, as you said, over him. Both Texans guys, I think, are better. Both Redskins guys are better. You're putting Keenan Allen right now in the John Brown range, in the Devontae Adams range, and I think that's kind of where he belongs.
Do you think Ruben Randall's a better start than Keenan Allen?
Without a doubt, Ruben Randall's a better start.
Now, Ruben Randall, obviously, everything is kind of in flux in that Giants passing game because of Victor Cruz being out. The receivers, you know who they are, Ruben Randall, Odell Beckham. I think a lot of fantasy owners are going to look to them. Certainly Randall, Beckham as a wild card play. But you've got a feeling about Larry Donnell this week.
You have to look at them and say, okay, the last 2 games, they've gotten Odell Beckham on the field. Donnell's been a secondary option. Well, here we go now. No Victor Cruz for the rest of the season. Now it's time for Larry Donnell to step back up and be a part of this offense again. Eli Manning's going to need him. The Giants need him. And it's a very good matchup for him this week in what should be a fun game to watch against the Cowboys. Dallas done a very good job the last 2 games against tight ends, but they haven't faced anybody of significance when you talk about Garrett Graham and Luke Wilson. Donnell, prior to the last 2 weeks, was a very significant contributor. We know the touchdowns were there for him, and I think he's going to be a big red zone threat, certainly a guy over the middle that Eli Manning is going to have to rely on. So if Donnell has been somebody that you've put on the bench the last couple weeks, get him back into your starting lineup, should do very well, should do much better than a guy you don't like in Heath Miller.
Yeah, you know, a couple weeks ago we saw Heath Miller have this big game against Tampa Bay, and now we've started to see a lot of players have big games against Tampa Bay. And I'm thinking the reason for it is because that Tampa Bay defense is just so bad that Heath Miller was kind of a one-week flash in the pan there. Every other game, he's been totally disappointing. And as much as we want to say that Heath Miller needs to be a bigger part of this offense, we're not the ones making the call there. And Heath Miller might just only get 3 or 4 catches a week, nothing big otherwise. And so that leads me to believe that he's a sit this week against the Texans defense. They haven't allowed any tight ends to get to 10 or more fantasy points. In fact, the high for any tight end against Houston this year, 8 fantasy points. Miller would be lucky to get to 8 fantasy points.
I would agree. And for more of your start-sit information, make sure you check out Fantasy Football Today on CBSSports.com Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern. For Dave Richard, I'm Jamie Eisenberg. This has been an exclusive edition of Fantasy Football Today for CBS Local Sports.